So, over the last couple of months, I've been thinking about Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball in general, right? And what I would love to see from the series going forward. Other story arcs, just other side arcs and various character plotted moments. Characters who were introduced in the Tournament of Power, or maybe even in Universe 6, the characters who were introduced in the Champa arc of Dragon Ball Super. That's really been my main focus. Yes, like most people, I am 100% on board with everything the Dragon Ball Super manga is doing right now. Less so, I don't really care about Dragon Ball Heroes. In fact, I did a video even before, like literally well before that story came out, or that entire concept was released, or even announced that it was going to happen, like legitimately. Of course, rumors about that happening had been around for a very long time, and I said doing a Dragon Ball Heroes anime would be the death of Dragon Ball in terms of quality. Yeah, you would get a lot of fan moments here and there with characters being reintroduced and transformations and fights that you would never see happen in any real logical sense in any other form of Dragon Ball, maybe even the games. Because honestly, you don't get as much of the what if characters introduced in the games as you do in Dragon Ball Heroes, because like Dragon Ball Heroes is a game in and of itself, but it has that anime adaptation. No, I really thought that if Dragon Ball Super was going to come back in any real way, shape, or form in the foreseeable future, which at this point we all know that it's going to be coming back, it was going to be really interesting to see what they did with the characters and how they developed the story. So this entire video is talking about a side story, or maybe even an OVA similar to what they could do with the father of Goku, the Bardock story that everyone still gravitates towards even today after Dragon Ball Super Broly came out, that reinterpreted or at least canonized, for anyone who cares about the whole canonized argument with Dragon Ball, with the concept of Bardock and Broly, or at least the idea of what Toriyama wanted to bring to the table with the concept of Bardock and Broly. That is on a completely different level. Right now we're talking about characters who are in Dragon Ball, were introduced in Dragon Ball Super, and we could tell a story with them in some kind of original story that doesn't have to harp on the main story that's going on with Dragon Ball Super. I'm here to tell you guys about that because it's something that I would desperately want to see in the future of Dragon Ball Super, and that is another entangled story with Hit, the legendary assassin of Universe 6. If you are new to this channel, if you've been listening to me for a very long time, you know for a fact I love Hit. I feel like he's the best character that was introduced in Dragon Ball Super, and he's the only character that had a legitimate arc throughout all of Dragon Ball Super, that we knew where he was, what he was going through, and where he ended up at the very end of that series. And we got enough episodes, even though it's like, what, in total he had maybe about 5 or 6 episodes dedicated solely to him and his arc, but we knew exactly who he was and where he was going. A lot of people at this point have really started talking about whether or not they want to see Hit's backstory. I don't think that focusing on Hit's backstory is going to be good for ratings or even story potential unless you do something uniquely interesting that's inherently tied to the mythology. I personally don't think that if you focus on Hit or his backstory, even though this guy has been alive for 1,000 years in Universe 6, that anything you can do with his character is going to be remotely interesting at this point. But I really do think that you can find characters and situations and just general motivation for him to build the entire mythology of Dragon Ball and what we saw throughout Dragon Ball Super, and also tie it to him and his relevance, not only in Universe 6, but the multiverse in general. And maybe his interaction with the multiverse and the fact that he knows about the cube and knows about the possibility of going between one universe to another. The fact that Universe 6 people do not know inherently that there is a multiverse out there, the same way that people in Universe 7 didn't know during the start of the tournament between Beerus and Champa. So that is something I would explore a little bit with this OVA. You have Hit working for the Yardratian people in Universe 6. You have him making sure that they have a way of getting between Universe 6 all the way to another universe in order to protect themselves and their own species against whatever antagonizing force that goes up between them during the events of this OVA. They hire Hit in order to take out this guy and make sure that they have safe passage between Universe 6 to Universe 2 or anything else that we see, or at least get an idea of why the Yardratian people show up in Universe 2, even though just based off logic with Dragon Ball Super and everything that they had told us before the Tournament of Power, they should be in Universe 6 and Universe 7 altogether. Maybe because Hit has been around for so long, these creatures or this alien race have so many unique and interesting tricks that they can get between one universe to another. Maybe they've been around long enough because they have so much interesting tricks and maneuvers that they have knowledge of the fact that there is a multiverse, and they hire Hit in order to protect them as they get as many of their people, if not all of their people, away from Universe 6 all the way to another universe in order to protect their race. That would be a really interesting story to me. The biggest issue I've always had with doing a prequel series with Hit in Universe 6 is that Universe 6's arc in Dragon Ball Super, his rivalry between Goku and Vegeta has made it very clear that Hit has never been challenged in his entirety of existence, or at least the point where he becomes a universal legendary assassin over the course of 1,000 years, and he has so much under his belt during his time there. There's no one who's ever challenged him physically in the same way that Goku and Vegeta did, and focusing on any time before that tournament is going to be a little bit boring because we know that Hit can win in that certain situation, but you need to give the story, or at least the mission that they give him, some relevance, and something that's not so easily accomplished by Hit going out there and assassinating one person or another. Getting an entire race from one universe to another seems like an epic enough story. Go back and explain why the Yardratians are in Universe 2 versus why Hit has all of this experience and all of these backstories that we can explore and see what he was doing in the time before that particular tournament when we first got to know him. That would be something I would find incredibly exciting and I would really gravitate towards as a Dragon Ball fan. But I want to open up to everybody who is watching this video. Would you watch that? Would you be excited for that? Would you like to see more of the stories with the Yardratians or more of the stories with Hit in Universe 6 as we go forward? What stories would you like with the legendary assassin of Universe 6? And do you think that it would be remotely interesting focusing on his younger days, even though it's very clear that before the tournament with Champa and Beerus, Hit never had to challenge himself because he never stepped up against someone like Goku or Vegeta to the point where he had to really deeply focus on who he was, what he wanted to fight for, and was able to push himself beyond his limits. That was the entire point of that arc, right? So if there was no other point where he found that unless it was him figuring out that he could do the Tokotobashi in any other way, no other story in 1,000 years other than this, at least in my opinion, would be an interesting story for the series of Dragon Ball, not only for his character, but the Yardratians as well. So I wanted to just throw this out there. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.